Hey guys, how's it going? So today I have a little short video about the Bill of Rights, just to introduce the Bill of Rights to you and give you guys a foundation from which to go forward because this is a brand new topic. We haven't learned anything about the Bill of Rights this year yet. We're going to be diving deep into it over the next few weeks, especially in regards to how the Bill of Rights applies to you in schools. So just follow along here. Here we go. All right, guys, so a little introduction to the Bill of Rights. And this starts with a little story about this guy right here, James Madison, fourth president of the United States. He's called the father of the Constitution, but he's actually better known as, or should be better known as, the baby daddy of the Bill of Rights. The interesting story is he didn't want the Bill of Rights. So he was a reluctant baby daddy to the Bill of Rights. So what happens is this. In 1787, the Constitution is made at the Constitutional Convention. And at the end of the convention, after they've laid out the legislative branch and they got the executive branch down, and judicial branch, they did all this stuff. They got the Constitution together. At the end, they started thinking, well, what about a Bill of Rights? And they're like, dude, we've been talking about a Constitution for 5 months. Dude, we're tired. Let's just go home. Also, James Madison stands up and says, there's a problem with the Bill of Rights, too. Number one, each state has its own Bill of Rights, so we don't really need another Bill of Rights. And two, a Bill of Rights could be limiting, because what happens if we list all the rights people have and leave one out? Does that mean people don't have that right? So Madison was like, no, Bill of Rights is not a good idea. Plus, the way we've made the government with checks and balances, separation of powers, and federalism, that will limit the government enough that the Constitution itself is a Bill of Rights. So Madison was against the idea of a Bill of Rights. Well, what changed his mind then? Well, what happened is that several people didn't like the Constitution. They were afraid of the Constitution. So when it came to ratify or legally approve the Constitution, some compromises had to be made. And so people kind of agreed that, hey, if we approve this Constitution, we ratify the Constitution, we'll do that if we get a Bill of Rights afterward. And Madison's like, all right, fine. So that's what happened. Constitution was ratified by 1789. And one of the first things that they did in Congress, where James Madison was sitting in the first Congress, was they made a Bill of Rights. What's really interesting about this story is that Madison wrote down a proposal of something like 26 different amendments to the U.S. Constitution. And out of those, that got whittled down to 10. So out of the 26 that Madison proposed, only 10 were ratified. So let's get some definitions here. Okay. To amend, that's the root of amendment. Amend means to fix or change by adding. So you're adding something, right? You're adding something to the end of something to change it. So an amendment is an addition to the U.S. Constitution made after it was ratified. Currently, there are 27 amendments. The last amendment to the U.S. Constitution was made back when I was in high school, back in 1993. The first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution are called the Bill of Rights. So that's the definition of Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. I want to throw out another definition for you for Bill of Rights, though. The Bill of Rights is a list of the things that the government cannot do, right? People think of the Bill of Rights in terms of the rights that are given to us. I like to think about it as a limit on what the government can or cannot do. All right, so how to amend the Constitution? How does this thing get amendment? So it's a two-step process. Step one is to propose an amendment, and that can be done either by 2/3 of the states or 2/3 of Congress. Again, if you think about percentage-wise, that's 66%, so it's quite a bit. Step two is to ratify a proposed amendment. So once you've gone through step one, you got to go through step two, which means 3/4 of the states, either the state governments themselves or the states hold special meetings where it's ratified. Again, that's a big number. 3/4, that's 75% of the states. So you think about mathematically, out of the 50 states, 75% would be about 38 states. So you'd have to get at least 38 states out of the 50 to agree to ratify an amendment. It's one of the reasons why we haven't had an amendment in quite a while, because it's darn hard to do. Okay, so the organization of the Bill of Rights. Again, it's the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. The First Amendment is usually the most famous one because that includes your freedom of speech, religion, assembly, press, and petition. But I like to think about it like this. Amendments 1 through 3 protect your own personal liberty. Okay. Again, First Amendment protects everything about your speech, assembly, press, petition, religion. Second Amendment protects your rights to protect yourself. That's why you have the right to bear arms, meaning the right to have weapons, to have firearms. The Third Amendment, which we don't talk about much, but it's still about personal liberty, it protects your houses from the government. It protects and basically says government cannot have troops, soldiers, stay in your home without your consent. So that's the first three. The next few, Amendments 4 through 8, are what people call the rights of the accused, meaning if you get into trouble, and I like to think about it in increasing terms of badness. As more bad things happen to you, or you get in more trouble, these amendments are there to protect you. For instance, Amendment 4 protects you if you get pulled over by the cops. Amendment 5 protects you if you get arrested. Amendment 6 protects you if you have to go to court. And the Eighth Amendment protects you if you end up in prison. So, again, increasing order of badness, Amendments 4 through 8. The Ninth Amendment is Madison's cover your ass amendment. Remember that what he was worried about, how Madison was worried that if we listed all the rights out and there wasn't one, does that mean the people don't have it? So he wrote the Ninth Amendment, basically saying that there are other rights that the people have, they're just not listed here. So people today tend to think of that means like the right to privacy, right? We've talked about that in regards to abortion and how some abortion advocates and how the Supreme Court, back in the Roe v. Wade case, they looked at Amendment 9 as the thing that gives people the right to privacy and therefore the right to have an abortion. The 10th Amendment is the Federalism Amendment. It basically says that the states get to keep some rights too. So if powers are not given specifically to Congress, that means the states or the people themselves have those powers. Okay? So again, organization of the Bill of Rights. So your assignment for today is pretty simple. I posted a text with some questions. You guys are going to just read that text and answer the questions. Because next week, that's when we get into the real dirty work of how does the Bill of Rights protect students in schools. And that gets really messy because sometimes it seems like, no, you as students don't have any rights when you're actually in school. But then there are other instances where it's like, yeah, students do have some rights. They don't just leave all of their rights at the door when they walk in the school building. So that's our plan. But for today, you are doing the reading and the questions. Again, guys, if you have any questions, email me. That's what I'm here for.